Gail Finney right there has been instrumental in making this whole thing work. Not only did she pen the didactic that introduces the exhibition, but she imagined the vitrines with this kind of, it looks pretty accurately like tables in my studio. And that's to say it's chaotic, and it's not, right? So I thank her for imagining and executing the vitrines as well as writing the didactic. And then Scott Andrews, who's somewhere back there, has been instrumental also as a communications director. And he has been on it. So there have been almost a deluge of good-looking e-bites and announcements and so forth, and that's his doing. And he also has a hidden talent for all of this. I say hidden talent because he won't talk about himself unless you really push him. And I want to thank also Melina right there for her flattering review in the current Random Lengths News. It makes me almost embarrassed. Well, it makes me embarrassed. So look, I don't want to sound academic here, but in the didactic, Gail mentions how the kind of impetus or the root of my thinking as well as my painting has been from reading, from literary sources, not necessarily from studying visual material. I have such a weird kind of perception about me that I wind up imagining things that reflect what I'm thinking. That might sound convoluted and fucked up, but I don't mean it that way. I hope you don't mind this, but I'm going to try and read you a couple of poems. Who's out there? Tell them to bring beer or quiet down.
You don't just want to do that. Tell them to keep it down here, quiet down.
Okay, so probably you have heard of the most excerpted and copied and interpreted and reinterpreted poems in English literature for more than 100 years. And it's William Butler Yeats, the Irishman, writing about the second coming. And I think if you can pay attention to this, I'll try not to hurry through it, that you'll find that it's amazingly relevant today, more than 100 years later. The second coming. Turning and turning in the widening jeer, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming, hardly are those words out when a vast image out of spiritus mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with a lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep We're vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hours come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. So that could have been written late last night. It absolutely applies to what's going on now. So there's a sense of not only a reverence for the power of language, but about the timelessness of the best in language and literature. And in particular, in my case, I like poems that kind of push me around like that. I hope that later on I want you to walk around the gallery and maybe some of the trees from my studio will help you to understand how this affects me. So it's not all gloom and doom, but it can be miserable and funny as hell. One of my favorite poets, the late John Berryman, first published a book of dream songs called simply 77 Dream Songs. And here's one that is my favorite. Life, friends, is boring. We must not say so after all. The sky flashes, the great sea yearns. We ourselves flash and yearn. And moreover, my mother told me as a boy, repeatedly, ever to confess you're bored means you have no inner resources. I conclude now I have no inner resources because I am heavy bored. Peoples bore me. Literature bores me, especially great literature. Henry bores me with his plights and gripes as bad as Achilles. Who loves people and valiant art, which bores me, and the tranquil hills and gin look like a drag. And somehow a dog is taking itself and its tail considerably away into mountains or sea or sky, leaving behind me, wag. So there you go. It's cynicism, humor, and dread wrapped into like a dozen lines. So I like John Berryman. And one other thing, the show, I typed the title of the show from a book I've been reading, I've been in and out of for a number of months, by Fernando Pessoa, a book called The Book of Disquiet. And I realized that maybe the look of disquiet might be reflected here. But that's your call. Because I believe, and I've shared this with some of you, that there is actually an inverse ratio between what can be said, written, deconstructed, copied, etc. What can be said about a work of art versus what the work of art says for itself, right? So that's my way of thinking, that kind of shut up already and let the artwork speak to you, whether it's painting or sculpture, and the same I hold for music. You can just read, because we're in this age where everything is deconstructed, explained to death, that I think we don't let the artwork speak for itself. So that's probably what I mean in a lot of this work, because it's not a vague atmospheric abstraction or representation. They're almost like diagrams of thought. And but I don't mean to be boasting on the quality of my thought, because that's dubious. Somebody told me I should introduce to you how I got to this dreadful state that I'm in today. And that is, as a young man, my father was a civil engineer with an architect's flair. And when I entered undergrad school, I was an architecture major, enrolled as an architecture major. But at the University of Illinois, where I attended, architecture majors were required to take freehand drawing and painting, at least one painting class and so forth. And I remember my first time up to the third floor of the Fine Arts Building and smelling the solvents and the oil paint, and then getting a glimpse of a naked model in a studio. So I thought this could be more interesting than architecture for sure. And so I announced to my father that I was changing my major from architecture to fine arts, and that was the beginning, I think, of a lifelong rift between us. And it took me a long time to figure out where the hell I was as a painter. As a high school student, I had been taking classes at the Art Institute of Chicago and walked past Willem de Kooning's excavation probably 100 times going up to my classes. And finally, something clicked, that there was a sense to be found in abstraction. So some of you might feel that these are not essentially abstract works, and I don't give a damn what anybody calls them anyway. They're just my paintings. So that's how I got to this state. And this guy, Pessoa, there's so much to be grabbed and quoted from this man. It's like how you can read the same pages of Joyce's Finnegan's Wake again and again, and until you read it aloud, you're not going to get all of the punning that exists there. So there is meaning on top of meaning, meaning below meaning, and those things are the most attractive to me. So here's something kind of humbling that Pessoa says: let's act like sphinxes, however falsely, until we reach the point of no longer knowing who we are. For we are, in fact, false sphinxes, with no idea of what we are in reality. The only way to be in agreement with life is to disagree with ourselves. Absurdity is divine. Let's develop theories, patiently and honestly thinking them out, in order to promptly act against them, acting and justifying our actions with new theories that condemn them. Let's cut a path in life and then go immediately against that path. Let's adopt all the poses and gestures of something we aren't and don't wish to be, and don't even wish to be taken for being. Let's buy books so as not to read them. Let's go to concerts without caring to hear the music or to see who's there. Let's take long walks because we're sick of walking. And let's spend whole days in the country just because it bores us. So that's sort of how I feel about every goddamn thing. To tell you the truth, maybe here's how I prefer to do this, and there's not too many of us for it to be what's called in the vernacular a clusterfuck. We can walk through the gallery and look again at this stuff, and maybe come back in here and ask questions, because what I'm saying to you I know is questionable. So maybe we can do that.
Okay.
Would that suit you?
Yes.
Look, I'm open to anything. At this point in my life, I am open to anything. I hope you are too.
Is there a time limit, Ron? 10
Yes.
minutes, 20 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
However long it takes you to digest. And let me tell you something. I think that Gail Finney did such a nice job with these two vitrines. I never would have thought of it. But in there are clues that you'll to what you'll be looking at. Hey, Jackie. Okay?
Yep.
Dismissed.
So I have a question for you, Ron. My question is about poetry and his art, okay? But when you read it, there's a certain, when you read poetry, there's a certain cadence and there's a certain style of reading, and you get into the words, and there's multiple meanings of the words and how they make relationships. And there's a sort of a language that you have here, a vernacular with symbols and forms. Is that part of your verbal vocabulary? I mean, is your visual vocabulary for your pieces?
Well, this might sound odd. Perhaps it won't. But beginning years and years ago, when I first came to California, I had a big studio in Pasadena, which at that time was a virtual slum before the renewal happened to Old Town and made it unaffordable. And I had with me an old Underwood typewriter before I even got a Selectric. And I read things that seemed, to naive me, seemed important and informative. And I would take the time to type them out, the passages that appealed to me. I found some of them a couple of months ago, and because the paper was cheap and so full of acid that they mostly had brittled and browned, you know. But from the reading that I did then, and even the reading that I do right now, it was like a hit of speed to me, because my brain started operating on a different wavelength. And that happens, I'm sure that all of you have read some literature, whether it's a novel or a poem or an essay or something scrawled on a wall, like, you know, the early kind of Basquiat scribblings that were like philosophical and critical of his time and place. So I hope that answers your question, but it affected me in that way. I felt, I'm not kidding here, I felt like it was a jolt to my imagination, because I was thinking in new ways. You know, the order of things, especially in prose and poetry, affects its meaning. And I found that really attractive and compelling. And I don't know if I've measured up to my self-imposed project in any way. I'm not that vain or fucking ignorant, but that's what I was trying to do. Does that help you? Or did I answer it?
Yeah.
Sort of? Come on. It's okay. I didn't mean to be hedging.
Well, there's a certain, I'm trying to think of poetry as a certain rhythm when you read it, you know, there's a certain way. And when I look at your paintings, there's a sort of a rhythm that we have to view them. We have to start discerning what they are, and how those rhythms go together, and their relationships go together. So they're all things that I now have a better understanding of where those are coming from than what you just read. So I sort of understand the word a lot better than just the flat surface and the images on this canvas surface. You know what I mean? You get a deeper breadth and look into the piece itself. You start to read the piece.
That's what I'm aiming for. From the time I got out of graduate school, I seemed to have one goal, and that goal was to make paintings that were handsome enough that you were attracted. And then further, the most important test, will you hang around or will you revisit the work? I'm trying to do works that require a slow read. So you don't just go by and say, oh, look, that's a fucking black ellipse on an ochre ground with a little white thing happening down in the right. Well, a little white thing happening might be rolling its way somewhere. The ellipses might be expanding or compressing. And that's what I'm hoping that you would hang around long enough to discern. Does that make any sense?
What informs your coloring palette?
Poverty. No, earth colors are less expensive. And I tell people that socially I'm a communist, and aesthetically I am a snob. But I like khaki colors, I like military colors, I like the color of newsprint, I like the color of dirt. It just seems to me that that's almost a moral obligation. And when I use red or blue, I only do it if I mean it. I find color kind of sacred, and I try and treat it with respect. And like that painting that Arnie's standing in front of there, you know, moi, me, the yellows just started to take on a glow, and I hadn't done a yellow painting since that one, which is ironically called Below Red. Now, why would you call a yellow painting below red? Well, I looked it up, and the most cautionary colors, most frequently used, are red for emergency vehicles and fire engines and ambulances. And the next one is yellow. So that one's below red. So that's just a goddamn joke. But I think that's also part of how my head works. And when I was talking about that, the ochres just started building with cadmium yellows until in my corrupted eye, it seemed almost to be like a shimmering, warm yellow gold, yeah? So that's it.
Ron, do I have to stand up?
Yeah, do it.
That was hard. I've known Ron for quite a while, and I really appreciate his work. And I was looking around, and I was going, I wanted to find something new that I haven't seen. I haven't seen this piece here. And I'm particularly drawn to it because of the three-dimensional aspect that it has that I don't see in the other work, but it's an outlier, but it's not. It's within the same vocabulary, and I'd like to hear about that piece.
Okay, I had that piece. That is a stencil that I've used for just random dots. The stencil paper is a waxed paper. The holes were made with a die, a little circular die that you hit with a hammer with a piece of lead, like a stage weight beneath the paper, right? And pop, it perforates. And then I saw that black, kind of weird amorphous image on the top there, and I've made a number of paintings that I call Aftermath, and those are about what's going on in the world right now with people and architectures and monuments and sculptures and roads and bridges being blown to smithereens. So I looked at that and I drew the outline, the kind of contour that looked like a head. And then I drew the ellipse that looked like a void. And in my mind I was seeing, it sounds grotesque, like a disembodied head falling into a bucket or something. That's not a very healthy imagination, is it?
Are those bullet holes, or is it a veil? Because it's a portrait.
Well, it's either. And in some of the little paintings that I was doing when I first was trying to find my hand again, there are like holes that are rendered like bullet holes.
I think that's what I liked about that piece. It drew me to it. I had to get really close to it. to see if you had rendered them as perforations.
Well, you can bet your ass I can, but I didn't. Steve?
I was just wondering if the rhythm of particular poems has inspired your the composition of some of these paintings. Is there anything where you're carrying over what you read in that way?
There are certain rhythms that I find in what I'm reading, and they're not unlike the rhythms that I find when I'm using those drafting and drawing tools, or I'm playing with ellipses, rather bouncing or moving around, or spheres that I try to make them implying a kind of motion, or that painting in there that's called Helter Skelter, where it looks like a bunch of balls, like a bad juggling accident. So yeah. Oh, I also wanted to tell Eric that it was rather laborious pounding that thing. And I thought to myself, well, William Burroughs made paintings, took them out in the backyard and blew the shit out of them with a shotgun. What's the matter with me? But I couldn't find a place and I didn't have a shotgun.
Lucky for us.
Good spray pattern.
No, you're not a target. All right. Any other questions?
Peter.
Well, hey, thank you very much. Oh, go ahead. Peter.
So actually, two questions.
Yeah.
One is, so you've been talking about how you present a lot of things in your paintings. Some of them have things going on in the background. But if you look at it, it may not be the background. It may be something that was there, so you painted over it, but it's still visible. So it's older stuff. But also in the perspective when you look at it, it could be the future coming to replace the present in this layer. So are you playing with layers of...
Yes, you'll see a lot of layers in these paintings. And some of them are the product of painting something out to paint something in, something different in. And then a lot of things that are semi-obscured wind up playing a prominent place in the composition. It's just kind of the methodology of working, you know what I mean? And so the past is the present and the present is soon to be the past. I just hope that a painting succeeds on multiple levels, right? Formally, all the issues of balance and distribution of color or tone, etc., size, scale. I want them to work formally like that because I'm an anal retentive white person of a certain age. But otherwise, I don't give a damn.
Can you tell folks why you don't sign the paintings on the front?
I do sign them, but in the modernist tradition, I sign them on the reverse.
You know you don't like red, but can you talk about that painting? Is that really like it?
You know, a good way to think about that painting, Raj, is outside there's a monitor and there's a short video by my friend and colleague Walter Medina, who is currently in France. And the making of that painting, from the little drawing of the cartoon to the first layers of red, are in that video. So I make this drawing, and the drawing looks so good just with charcoal pencil on raw canvas that I figure, well, that's handsome enough. Leave that like it is. And then compulsion takes over and I start to paint the damn thing red. And then the little circles go into the little funny frames. Those are frames from the old days of photogravures and so forth, right? And then I see the little circles moving around inside the ellipses. And I think about pinball machines, and I think about spies. Then I paint those little cadmium red light dots in there, and I go, that's hilarious. They're spying just before they fall in the big pit. So that's a brief. I don't mean to trivialize a very important work.
Ron. When do you call one painting done?
That's a hard question, because I think anybody that paints would agree with this, that you think a painting is done, and it's still hanging around in your studio, and it could be months, or in some cases it could be years, and you revisit something and it clicks in your head what you should have, could have, would have done if you knew what the hell you were doing. One of my favorite statements said, I've got a tattoo on my back, only kidding. Where was I when I needed me? That's what I think about. That's what I think about when I look at work and I go, God damn, why did you hang out there? That comes out a little bit in the video where Walter had me leaping through a sketchbook, and I didn't even realize that it was going to wind up in a video, much less this video about me. And there are some of the dumbest things in there, but at least I admit to them. I admit to, like, the fact that it took me a couple of years. Where was I when I needed me? Or why did I abandon this project, this line of thinking and working, when something good might have come of it had I stayed? You know, it's just how it is. It's a predicament. Well, hey, thank you all again.
I just want to thank you for this gorgeous work. It's beautiful and it's reductionist. It has such critique and humor and warmth, and it is it has a unique presentation of your point of view. And I love all these paintings, and they're so reduced, and it's all there. All the things you say, all the things you're trying to convey, the humor, the pathos, and the formal presentation in balance, and movement also. There's so much movement in this. They're tremendous.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. You never know where the hell you're going. And I think it's a privilege to have you here to listen. I hope that it made some sense. But it means a lot to me that you cared enough to come take a look at this. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for
And before everybody goes, we have new copies of the price list. And I remind everyone that virtually everything is for sale. So if you're interested,
including me.
If you're interested,
A lot of miles, but not too many.
Yeah. Anyway, come see me if you're interested.
Well,